Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting. It's an informational event sponsored by Let's Talk Alberta, and our goal is just what the name says. We want to get a conversation going, and we want people to start talking, and talking with each other instead of talking at each other. So, before I even go any further, how many of you are here tonight and have never been to a meeting like this before? Good, welcome. Okay, there's just a few housekeeping issues. The men's washroom is out the door to your right and down the stairs. The ladies' washroom is out the door to your left and all the way down the hall. There is a handicapped washroom, male, female, out the door to your left and partway down the hall. Emergency exits are to the rear of the building on both sides, and then there is an entrance over here, and I don't know if there's one here, I can't see. No? Okay. Okay, if you haven't yet, please help yourself to a beverage at the back. There is a sign-up table to my left at the back where we're just asking if you want to just leave us your name, the town that you're in, either a phone number, an email, or maybe both. And when we're back in this area, we will send you a poster and we'll let you know that we're here. And if you'd like to volunteer next time we're in your area, there's a column where you can tick that off. There are also a lot of trifold brochures at the sign-up table. They contain incredibly good information. Please take one, at least one for yourself. Take more for friends and family. There are merchandise tables at the back. And if you have a hard time getting conversations started about independence, we just suggest you buy some merchandise and wear it, and that should get a conversation going. Our merchandise is overpriced, and there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in a bit. There are also large signs at the back, and we do have lawn signs as well at the table and to the back of the room. As a society, we're fully dependent on the grassroots of this movement to fund us. We don't have corporate donors, we don't have government funding, we don't get charitable donations, we depend on you guys. And what we do with the money is to educate. That's one of the main goals, is so that come October, people will be able to go to the polls and have an informed decision. We don't pay our speakers, we pay for the venues, we do give gas money, and so what we get here will help us do the next one and the next one and the next one. So know that we are very appreciative of what we do receive from you, and we try to use it in the best way we can. printing materials is so expensive, and I think Shane said we're going through 10,000 a week of the trifolds. So that's where the money goes. Okay, what else? So an event like this is to give everyone the opportunity to come together and talk about the issues facing Alberta, facing this country, and to have a safe place to do it in. We welcome every opinion, and later on, we're going to give you guys the opportunity to ask questions, to give comments. So it's not just, we're not just here to speak to you, but we're hoping that you will speak to us. In the question and answer period, if you feel that you're maybe a little shy to come up to the mic that we'll provide for everybody, come and see me during the intermission, and I can write your question down and ask you for it. While you are listening to the speakers, and if you hear something that maybe you disagree with, or you want to have a little bit further information on it, write that down, give it to me, and we'll get it asked. Okay, so having said that, tonight, how we're going to do it is we're going to have 3 speakers this evening. We'll have a short break, and then the Q&A. We'd ask that during the time the speakers are up here presenting that you would hold your questions, hold your comments, and we'll give you ample time later on to do that. The 3 pillars that undergird our goals and values are faith, family, and freedom. And it was nice, I've seen a lot of T-shirts that have that same sentiment. We traditionally always begin our meetings in prayer, or we end them in prayer. And so tonight I've asked Patty Vold if she would come and just lead us in prayer and open this meeting.
She's taller than I am. Before I do that, did anybody order flags from the United Flag guy in Wetaskiwin and John Tompkinson? Please say yes, because I have a bag of flags for you. So come find me back at the LTA table. If nobody claims them, I'll have to phone. I'll text John. Sorry, honey, my friend, my little brother, Max. This is sort of home territory for me a bit. I was born in Brooks and grew up in Scandia. So if she thinks I know, do I know you? Well, she thinks we'll figure that out later. So if we just, we'll bow our heads and pray. Father, we just invite you here tonight. We ask that you give us the words to speak, that you guard our hearts and our minds. We thank you for this beautiful country that you have given us to live in, the country of Canada and the province of Alberta. We know there are problems, but you, Lord, have your hand in it all. You've told us to be stewards of the land. Help us to do that in a way that is honoring to you. We know there's conflict. We know there is unkind words, unkind thoughts. So, Lord, let us just be free of those tonight. And even if people have questions that they're unsure of, just let them have the courage to speak. Because through that, we get freedom. So in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
So our first speaker tonight is Mr. John Riel. And John has not only served this country in the military, but he has served this country, and more specifically Alberta, fighting for Alberta's rights, its freedoms, and just to see a strong and prosperous Alberta. He is a notable figure in Canadian provincial politics, particularly, as I said, in Alberta. He is one of the founding members of the Alberta First Party. He ran for Social Credit Party in St. Albert. He has been very active throughout his lifetime, and his political journey reflects his involvement in Alberta's political landscape, particularly through his leadership roles and electoral campaigns. And I'm very happy and proud to introduce you to my friend, John Riel.
This is sort of like, I haven't seen this since the last time I was in church, where it fills up from the back to the front. I guess my job tonight is to say a few your words, and your job is to listen. If you get finished before I do, would you please let me know? The last few weeks have been interesting for my wife and me. We have volunteered to help with Let's Talk Alberta. And we've traveled around this province in the last few weeks from all the way up to the northern border, out east, out west, and down south. And what I've seen in this province is just absolutely marvelous. We have a beautiful province. It is mind-boggling what I've seen over the last few weeks. The stretches of prairie up in the north, the prairie down here, the forests, the badlands. We have everything in this province. We have so much to be grateful for. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to speak a little bit about why I think we need to do some real serious thinking about our relationship with our federal government. Let me start. I really hate to talk about money, but I'm going to for just a very brief moment. I do believe that when the federal government proposed its first budget for 2026, that the expected deficit was going to be somewhere around $30 or $32 billion. The last estimate that I heard, this may not be entirely accurate, but I did read it on the internet, so it must be right, that the deficit for this year is going to run over $70 billion. It was proposed to be 30. It's now like almost triple what it was proposed to be. So our federal government is in really, really tough shape. Now, they handle that with a great deal of alacrity. They say, great, we don't have any money. How can we raise money? And the first thing they do is they find a way to tax us. And then, like, they say, gee, we're going to eliminate the carbon tax at the retail level. Great. Let's put it on at the wholesale and manufacturing level. Do we still pay it? Yeah, but we don't see it at the counter. One of the other things I've noticed is that the federal government now has a deficit in excess of $1.6 trillion or something, or a debt, I should say, of $1.6 trillion. Last thing I heard out of Ottawa was that they're eyeing $6+ trillion in home equity. They're talking about taxing your homes and your property. Not when you sell them, which would be bad enough because we've always had the ability to sell our primary residence tax-free because we don't get to claim any tax exemptions against it, but before you even sell it. So that's going to be scary. The other alternative they have is printing money, and every time they print a dollar, it makes your dollar worth less. That's what the federal government is doing to us. And by us, I don't mean just Albertans, I mean all Canadians. We're all getting, they hang on to the mine, we get the shaft. So it needs to change. And the only change we can foresee in the near future is a change of government, a change of philosophy, a change of spending money on things like Ukraine armaments and what was it that I heard the other day? Gender-specific mine clearing in some place in Central Africa. I mean, gee, we have so many things that we want to do. Now, we have been a province since 1905. We've been a province with the same rights as other provinces since 1930. When we first joined Confederation, and we didn't join, by the way, we were conscripted, sort of like the Quebecers were in the Second World War. We don't want to join the Army, too bad you're in. We don't want to join Canada, too bad you're in. There was no vote. There was no plebiscite. There wasn't even a discussion outside of the Territorial Council. We just were blended into Canada by an act of Parliament. And the interesting thing about that is that act of Parliament occurred in England, not in Ottawa. So we have never, ever, ever been in this province in charge of our own destiny. We have never, ever had any influence over what our future can or should be. The number of people per MP in Alberta is about 127,000 people per MP. In the Maritime provinces, it's 68,000. Their vote is worth 3 times what yours is worth. If you remember the last election at 10 minutes after the polls closed in Alberta, the election was called as a minority government for the Liberals. Our ballot boxes hadn't even been opened. If you'll also recall, over the years, we've had all sorts of requests. We had Preston Manning. The West wants in. We want to participate. We want to be heard. How did that work out? Didn't happen. So there's only one way that we are ever going to get any influence in Ottawa. And that way is to assert our sovereignty. Firstly, in line with the Constitution, the British North America Act, the New Westminster Act of 1931, and the Constitution Act of 1982. Canada was formed as a confederation. A confederation, by definition, is a loose association of independent states. That's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be independent states equal to all other independent states within this confederation, including the federal government. The federal government is not supposed to be our boss. They're supposed to be equal, with different responsibilities, with different areas of jurisdiction, but equal to us. How's that working out? I want to talk a little bit about the Trans Mountain Pipeline. My dad, after the Second World War, yeah, I'm old. Yeah, some of you are probably older than I am, but I'm pretty old. My dad fought in the Second World War. After the war, he came back to Canada, and he went to work for Trans Mountain, or actually for Canadian Bechtel, who built Trans Mountain. And then once the pipeline was finished, after spending 6 or 8 trips to the office of Trans Mountain, they finally said they got tired of hearing him beg and hired him. And he worked for Trans Mountain until he retired some years ago. Great place to work, wonderful company. Now, Trans Mountain wanted to expand, so they did. And they decided to expand their pipeline from here to Vancouver, so they did. It was supposed to cost $8 billion to do that expansion. There were so many regulatory hurdles placed in front of TransCanada Pipelines that TransCanada eventually threw up their hands and said, we're not doing this. It is not economically feasible. So our hero, the federal government, stepped in and said, we'll buy it from you and we'll build it. I think they spent $40 billion building that expansion into Trans Mountain. $40 billion on a project that was supposed to cost $8 billion. Now that, who cares? I'll tell you why you care. Trans Mountain's not making any money because they are debt-ridden. That $40 billion became their debt. Now, along comes our wonderful Prime Minister, and he says to our equally wonderful Premier, we'd like to help you build another pipeline along the TMX route. Well, okay, that's great. What would it take? Well, how about this? If you spend $20 billion in carbon capture, then we'll let you build that pipeline. Oh, okay, so we can do that. Then our wonderful Prime Minister goes to BC, who's adamantly, the Premier Eby is adamantly against any pipeline. I don't know why, because I guess just because. And he says, well, what's in it for me? So our wonderful Prime Minister says, well, we're going to pay you. You can have money for transporting the product across your province. Now, one thing to consider that's not a share of Alberta royalties, that money is an operational expense. It comes out of the pipeline before any profit is calculated. The likelihood is, given the amount of debt with that $20 billion in carbon capture and what it's going to cost to build this pipeline is that the TMX parallel pipeline isn't going to make any money either. The only one that's going to make any money out of it is EB in British Columbia and the federal government through federal income tax to the oil companies. It's not a project for Alberta. It's not a project for Alberta at all. It's a project for the federal government. This is the way things have been going for 120 years. Louis Riel said at his trial in 1885 that the federal government didn't listen to the Northwest Territories Council. And not only that, the Northwest Territories Council didn't listen to the people of the Northwest Territories either. He said, they're the same. Nothing has changed. Now, here's what I've concluded from that. There's a lot more I'd like to say. Hopefully we get some really interesting questions during the Q&A, because there's a lot more information that I have I'd love to share with you. But here's where I am right now. In this country, we have 2 levels of government, not 3 or not 4. Municipal governments don't really exist. They're just an arm or a function of the provincial governments. We have 2 levels of government. We have federal and provincial. And we get to vote for provincial representatives and federal representatives. Now, our federal representatives have absolutely no power. They could never go to Ottawa, and it wouldn't make a whit of difference in what happened there, because they have no power. But having said that, we still elect them to the federal government. We also have senators that we're supposed to have in Ottawa that look after regional interests. I think we have 7, and the Maritimes have 24 or 25 or something like that. So we don't have any electoral power in the federal government. What we do have is electoral power in the provincial government. We have, I'm going to steal a little bit of my friend Benoit's thunder here. Quebec is sovereign within Canada. Do you know why? Because they demanded it. They said, this is the Constitution, this is our area of responsibility, these are our rights, federal government, go away. And they made it stick. We could do the same thing too. At a meeting in Red Deer a couple of Wednesdays ago, I happened to say to the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, I used one of Ben's lines. Sovereignty will not ever be given. Sovereignty is not given, it is taken. There are a number of things that our provincial government could do to take our sovereignty in accordance with the existing Constitution, even short of independence. Now, personally, I favor independence. Even as a former military guy in Canada, I favor independence. I think we've had enough of this BS. We've taken the tough stuff for too many years. It's time for us to grow and develop and do what Albertans do best, which is to tell the governments to get the heck out of the way and let us do what we need to do, and let the people down east ask, what can you do for us, to their federal government. We'll do for us, just get out of our way. Here's what I would ask Albertans to do. When you elect somebody to sit in the Alberta legislature, and I don't care what political party or political philosophy they represent, I don't care whether they're separatists or an NDP or Liberal or UCP, make sure that the individual that you vote for and put into office in Alberta is 100% focused on Alberta. We do not need Alberta politicians worried about Canada. We send people to Ottawa to do that. We need provincial politicians who are 100% focused on Alberta, and we need premier and cabinet members in Alberta who are 100% focused on Alberta and Albertans. Now, that's our job. Like my friend Chris, I believe that independence in Alberta is necessary, and I also believe it's inevitable. It will occur. Whether it will occur in my lifetime or not, I don't know. I'm getting on. You know, I mean, I had trouble with the stairs. So whether it occurs then or not, it will occur at some point. Hopefully it occurs before this becomes an absolute disaster. We don't need we don't need the World Economic Forum. We don't need communism. We don't need to be best friends with China. We have a wonderful trading partner directly south of us, whose people have come to Canada way back when and formed the bulk of the immigration to this country up until we decided we needed people from elsewhere. we're family. We have the same can-do, must-do attitude. So do that. I beg of you, when it comes time to pick your provincial representatives, pick those who are for Alberta and Albertans, and then demand that they obey the Constitution and that they ask and demand the sovereignty that exists within those documents, which is rightfully and lawfully ours. Thank you very much. I forgot I'm supposed to introduce my friend Benoit. Benoit is a transplanted Albertan, and that's fine with me because I was born in British Columbia. Ben is from Quebec, and his last name is Trudeau. Don't confuse him with that boob that gentleman who was our prime minister for 8 or 9 years or whatever it was. Ben is much more intelligent and thoughtful and logical than Justin Trudeau even had a thought of being. He's a wonderful man. He's a dyed-in-the-wool Albertan, just like I am, even though he speaks with a French accent. He's happy to be here, and my understanding is you're never going to move back to Quebec.
No, that's for sure not.
Ben Trudeau.
Yes, good evening. So clear out the atmosphere on my name right now. Yes, I'm related from 1648, so 14th generation back. Beside that, I hold a very nice picture of him on my phone that says, I received my IQ test today and it came back negative, and he's very, very happy with it. So that's what I think of that individual. I believe it was the worst prime minister this country ever saw or ever dreamed of. And second only to know, he supplanted his father, who was the worst before him. So yes, I grew up in Montreal. I come from a very political family, not because of our name, but because my dad was my dad's turning 80 in this coming September, and he still writes speeches and stuff. So my dad is a speechwriter, PR guy, worked all of his life in communication and all that, and worked for probably all premiers of Quebec since the 60s, and a couple of prime ministers as well. And so I grew up in backroom politics. I grew up in a very politicized environment. Plus, now I'm celebrating my 4th constitutional referendum of my lifetime. So the first one, I was 8 years old in 1980, where the first referendum in Quebec for separation, and that was lost by 60%, 40% yes, 60% no. The speech of René Lévesque to give away his loss was "see you next time." That's how he ended up his stuff. And then entered the constitutional negotiation that to patriate the Constitution from London, that was called by Trudeau, to which Quebec was kicked out, and the other province, with a duo of Brian Peckford and Jean Chrétien, basically brought in the worst constitution that we could ever had, with a charter that removed the protection of private property that at the time Lougheed from Alberta was fierce advocate for, and they brought in as well within the Constitution the equalization that was until that time just a law. And why did they do that? By bringing the charter, it displaced the control of all policies from those who we elected to the court. That's what basically the charter did. And what the equalization within the Constitution brought, it created welfare provinces. Because to change our Constitution in the country, we need 7 provinces representing 50% of the population. By creating the equalization, they made of the Atlantic provinces welfare provinces. Everybody talks about the equalization of Quebec. Yes, it's impressive as a number, 13 billion, but when you look at what is the participation of that equalization is on the budget of Quebec, it's only 8% of their budget. It's 26% of PI budget. It's 24% of New Brunswick budget. It's 24% of Nova Scotia budget. So just take these two provinces, they will never vote to remove that condition because they cannot operate without equalization. Not only that, but on top of that, they are the three champions of federal jobs. So all calling center in Canada, also everything is concentrated in these Atlantic provinces. So on top of equalization, they receive billions from the federal jobs. No, like here in Alberta, we have one federal employee per 6,000 Albertan. In PEI, it's 1 per 40. So they made sure that the Constitution will never be able to be open. So what is the solution? Two solutions. We vote to separate, or we start using the Constitution in our advantage, the way it was first negotiated by Upper and Lower Canada, by bringing two other provinces to be mediator in that negotiation. So what brought me to Alberta? I've done politics in Quebec, as I said, because of my dad. I started doing politics actively at 14 years old for the provincial Liberal government. In 1990, then there was, in 87, there was the Meech Lake Accord that went down, and then Charlotte, it went down on June 23rd, 1990. And then after that, Brian Mulroney started the Charlottetown agreement. And on Charlottetown, us in our party, in the youth wing, we were against the agreement that our then premier and leader of the party was negotiating with Mulroney. So we decided to campaign for the no, and our leader of the party, Robert Bourassa, decided to use his veto against our vote. So in reaction of that, we were 2,000 youth in that party. We all left all together. And 2 years later, we started our own party, named the Action démocratique du Québec. In 1994, March 1994, we started a party. We went in election right away, and we had 75 candidates out of 125 riding for the September 1994 election. I was one of them. I was 22 years old, and our leader was elected. He was the only one elected amongst our 75, but we gathered close to 7% of the vote. Parizeau, who became premier, knew that for his referendum he was missing 7% of the population, and it was our voters. So he brought us in, and I was part at 22, with our leader 24 years old, of all the negotiation of the question, because we were not separatists. You know what? I'm still not separatist. I'm not a separatist, but I'm a fierce sovereignist. And at the time, the question 95 was the first time written on my computer because I was taking notes during meeting. And that question was basically, do we give the mandate to the premier to negotiate a new deal with Ottawa? And if they don't want, then we separate. Okay, so it was not a referendum on separation in 95 in Quebec. It was a double clutch question. So let's give a chance to the Ottawa to find a new deal. If they're not serious, then we separate. That question was and then we had 95% participation rate in 1995. There's some polls in Montreal at 6 p.m., 100% of people went to vote. So we lost by 55,000 votes out of 4.1 million votes. 55,000 separated the yes to the no. And because the vote participation was so high, we had no choice but to accept the vote. But what did we do as Quebecers? It's important to know our constitutional history. So I wrote a book here where I talk mainly of the history of Canada from 1534, not from 1791. And I speak about when the English came in, the French were there for already 250 years. And the English start taking French farms to give them to Americans that want to stay faithful to the king. which led to a civil war in 1837, ended in 1838 by the hanging of the 12 French leaders of that revolution. And then they sent 100 others to Australia. And then after that, they say, well, what can we do? And then they decided to use the Westminster system and give a lot of autonomy to the provinces. I can tell you that all American states governor would love to have all the autonomy that the Canadian province have. Fast forward, the French Canadian in 1900, if you were living in Griffintown in Montreal, which is a small area near downtown Montreal, you were French Canadian, your life expectancy would have been 19 years old. And then the English said, well, we cannot beat them by war or stuff like that, so we'll beat them by money. So in 1900, if you were French, you couldn't get a loan. So what the French did, they decided to start their own bank named Desjardins, which is a credit union. It's the largest credit union in North America. Today, Desjardins have 7.8 million members out of the 9 million Quebecers. If you live in Quebec, you have an account at Desjardins. And what that means that the money stays in Quebec. Meanwhile, here in Alberta, we collect our royalties every Friday afternoon. Where do we put that money? Right now, these royalties are close to $500 million a week, 500 million. Where does that money is deposited? At the CIBC in Toronto. Every weekend, Toronto makes $2 to $3 million with our money. So, my book here speaks of what Quebec did. And when we lost that referendum, we say, okay, let's push, let's take full sovereignty. Let's go to the extent of what the Canadian Constitution says. And the Quebecers are the champion of the Westminster system to get their sovereignty. So now, today, Quebec's, they have 38 of their own embassies across the world. 38. You go to Tokyo, Paris, London, you will see a Maison du Québec. Quebecers don't use the Canadian embassy across the world. They use the Quebec embassy. Why? Because there's a principle that leaves every province the right to negotiate their own economic agreement and to promote themselves independently from the federal. Quebec controls its own immigration. And how do they control it? By choosing who comes in and when and how. In 1981, my sister, I have a sister, she's Vietnamese, both people. We adopted her in 1981. I was 8. She was 13 when she came home. In 87, my dad worked to bring the rest of her family, so her parents, the rest of her sister, brothers, down to Quebec. So they came in as refugees. What do Quebec do when they receive refugees? You go to a 5-day class where we teach you the history of Quebec, the culture of Quebec, and then at the end of that 5 days, you need to sign a social contract. A social contract saying you will respect the culture, you will respect this, and if you don't want to sign that social contract, no driver's license, no health care, no social program, go to Toronto. And this is exactly what the dad of my sister did. He didn't want to sign that social contract, he left to Toronto. So we need to assert who we are, and without any shame, because we have the right to in our Constitution. The same with the pension. Like in 1965, the Canadian government say we're going to create the CPP, Canada Pension Plan. Quebec say we're not interested in sending you any money, we'll control our own stuff. They created the Caisse, Caisse de dépôt de placement du Québec. And the Caisse, 60 years later, right now, holds $500 billion of asset for 6 million insured. The CPP holds $700 billion of asset for 22 million insured. The Caisse owns more real estate in this province, Alberta, than the government of Alberta itself. The Caisse owns the Cross Iron Mill, they own the Edmonton Outlet, they own the Southgate Mall in Edmonton, they own towers in Calgary. Why? Because they have the obligation to use 40% of everything they collect for Canadian asset. So the Caisse have 70 billion of assets right now as we speak. So the retirees of Quebec. So I'm saying that just to encourage us to say there's another avenue. There's an avenue where we can, within that constitution, assert our rights. So after writing that big book, the end is one-third of it is mainly reference, but I decided to do like subject-specific stuff. So I wrote a little one on equalization. So Quebec right now receives 3.6 billion more than what they should because they use the way the equalization is calculated and give back to their people instead of giving back in the federal pot. We can do the same. This is what that book explained. Canada Pension Plan. So I believe why everybody wants to keep the CPP is because nothing has been proposed for the APP. They wrongly say, oh, we wait for numbers. We don't need to wait for numbers. We're paying $3 billion more than what we pay every year in that Ponzi scheme of the feds. So this is a plan to create our own plan, our pension plan. My third one is Canada Revenue Agency. The other thing they will tell you, well, we won't collect our own taxes, which Quebec is doing since 1954, by the way. And this is constitutional, so the right to collect taxes is provincial. And what happened in 54, Quebec was tired of the federal to keep on charging taxes, so they said, you know what, you don't have the right to do that, we're going to collect the taxes. And there was a 3-year war where Quebecers paid twice their taxes. And then after 3 years, of course, the province won. And what that gave them control of all of their economic straws. And we can do the same. And the Premier will tell you, well, it's going to cost $1 billion to put up the system together, and about half a billion to run after that. Well, right now, the way it's done, the big businesses in Alberta has 72 hours to remit the payroll remittance once they give your paycheck. And the federal has 24 months to send it back the way they want it and at the level they want it. Just in lost interest on the cash flow they keep from Alberta, that represents $600 million a year. So that means that if we spend $1 billion to create our own revenue agency, and then $500 million to run it, the $600 million, the interest alone will pay for everything and bring back our initial investment within 10 years, which is shorter than a mortgage on a house. My last one is very interesting. My last one is about EI and about all the other stuff where we overpay because we are the richest and the youngest. And while I was doing my research, I found out something very special. There's a law, there's an agreement with EI that has been made in December 1996, negotiated by Alberta and signed by Alberta and Ottawa. It was the first agreement with EI in 1996. When Quebec saw that, they said, oh, I like what the Albertans did. We'll sign the same thing, which they did in February 1997. Well, today, with the Alberta plan negotiated in 96, they get $500 million more than we get with our own plan because we're not using it. So again, this is something and then we pay for jobs outside of the province. So this explains how we can get stuff back. So these four are based on the $30 billion that we leave on federal table every year, more than what we receive in stuff. If we do what's written in these four I call them plaquettes, which is a French term, and I find it quite cool, but I don't know what you think about it. Maybe it's just booklets. So in this four plaquettes, if you just do what is in there, we will leave $22 billion less on the federal table, and it would bring to you, Albertan taxpayer, directly in your pocket, over $3.6 billion more per year. Instead, and again, this is not changing our budget. This is not moving everything, just asserting, changing the way we do stuff, and controlling our own stuff. Anyway, I will end with in all my reflections. So I came here. It's politics that brought me here. I was the assistant of Minister of Canada Economic Development for the region of Quebec under the first Harper government with my office in Montreal and Ottawa. I was managing $4.3 billion of grants given to Quebec every year. The Prime Minister at the time, Mr. Harper, asked us to do link with Alberta that was booming, and this is what brought me to Alberta. I came here for the first time on April 2nd, 2007, to have a breakfast with our Premier, Mr. Stelmach at the time. And that same morning, I had to resign, so I decided just to move here. I met my wife here in 2011. We have 4 kids, all born and raised in Alberta. She already had 2 kids that became mine, and we have 2 kids together. And now I just learned that I will be a grandpa from our daughter being pregnant, so I'm very proud of that. So if you ask me, no, and I was never raised to be Canadian. I was raised as a Quebecer, so I don't know how to be Canadian. So I became Albertan instead. And I said, okay, how can I say that I'm Albertan the way I speak, and having moving here like that late in my life? And I said, well, I believe there's heartstrings that we can identify the Albertan culture, and we need to assert that. We need to say, this is who we are, this is how we function, and if you want to join this society, this is what you will need to respect. So I came with 8 heartstrings. The first one is enduring moral compass. Judeo-Christian values define our laws and identity. Heartstring number 2, herd equality. So merit matters, not identity markers. Heartstring number 3, hands-off freedom. Small government, stay in your lane. Heartstring number 4, pioneer grit. Family-centered, self-reliant, property-respecting. Heartstring number 5, real leaders, real results. So builders, not spenders. Conviction, not corruption. Heartstring number 6, wise land guardianship. Sustainable use by those who live here. Don't tell us how to manage our land. We know very much how to manage it. Heartstring number 7, move or die accountability. Self-reliance, personal responsibility. And heartstring number 8, proud Canadian Albertan, honor the past, defend the future. And I believe this is what defines an Albertan. So, on that, I will leave the mic to, by the way, these books are for sale. You can go see Baha at the table there. I have a bunch of different prices depending on the bundle you buy, 1, 4, 5, all of them. Well, so meanwhile, I will introduce a guy that became a good friend. We met in troubled time. We met in a time where I got very involved because a premier changed his mind on a vaccine mandate, and it took about 3 days for my wife to scrape me off the ceiling. He became a good friend. I'm honored to be part of the group that he put together, and I'm honored to be considered his friend, Chris Scott. Thank you.
Sorry, I like to make a dramatic entrance. Okay. So the reason I move everything away is so that if someone asks me a tough question, I have an easy exit. Just kidding. I just want you to know that I'm real and not an AI holographic projection or something. First of all, I want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. It's wonderful to be here again. This, I think, is the 3rd or 4th time I've been in this venue speaking on this subject. Now, what I've spoken about has changed over the years. The conversation has evolved into something different, and rightfully so, because Alberta, we're in a much different place right now than we were 5 years ago or 6 years ago. 5 years ago, we had some rumblings about Alberta independence. The Alberta Prosperity Project started in a shop in Nisku where we had to meet in secret, because if the government had found us, we would have been arrested or fined or jailed or whatever for meeting, because we weren't allowed at that time. And it was kind of it wasn't something that a lot of people talked about. I mean, the facts have always supported my opinion that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. I believe the facts support that. But the conversation around it hasn't really been what it is now forever. Like, this is kind of a first for Alberta. And now the conversation is so relevant that we have a question posed in October to Albertans on Alberta self-determination. Now, the question in October is not a question on separation or independence. The question that you're going to be asked in October as an Albertan is, do you want things to change? Do you want the government to start the process according to the Constitution to consider Alberta independence through another referendum? Now, if you boil that right down, what do we get in October should Albertans choose to ask for something different? We get to talk about it. That's what this is about. It's about the conversation about Alberta's future. Now, I've found that the conversation is often amplified by people who have a vested interest in the status quo. There's a lot of big names that are telling you what to think. Am I right? On both sides, to be fair. There's a lot of people telling you, you should do this. I'll share my opinion with you, and Let's Talk Alberta will share our collective opinions with you about what we believe is the best future and the best path for Albertans. But the most important part about this whole evening is that we get to talk about it. Now, recently, we took the big, beautiful Let's Talk Alberta tour bus, and we went to Stony Plain because my friend Thomas was there. My new friend Thomas. We're fast friends now. So Thomas Lukasic, he is the founder of Forever Canadian. And as I'm watching Thomas handing out these lawn signs, and I'm seeing a few lawn signs here and there, actually, there's quite a few lawn signs, both sides, I started thinking, you know what? Thomas is actually right. I'm going to go to Stony Plain, and I'm going to get a Forever Canadian lawn sign, and I'm going to put it on my lawn. Can you believe it? I'm not even kidding you. I'm not joking. The reason why I say that is because I agree with Thomas's premise that he will always be Canadian, and I will always be Canadian, and you will always be Canadian. Now, how can I say that as an advocate for Alberta self-determination? Well, just because Albertans participate in a conversation, completely lawful, legal, constitutional, about our future, which is what Canada's all about. We're allowed to talk about things. We have choices here. That doesn't mean that I don't value being a Canadian. If I lived in many other countries in the world, I wouldn't be able to come here and tell you that my opinion is that Alberta should be independent and must be independent, and it will be independent. I wouldn't be allowed, but I can because I'm a Canadian. So I agree with his premise that we will be forever Canadian. Now, something puzzled me, and this is another reason why I went to have a talk with Thomas. I want to talk about Thomas a lot tonight. I heard him telling people that if Alberta becomes independent, we will all lose our citizenship. And I thought, that's odd. I actually remember being hopping mad when our federal government was sued because somebody went overseas and fought against our country, against our allies, with our enemy, came back to Canada, had his citizenship stripped, and the Supreme Court gave it back and gave him $10.5 million. Do you remember that? A lot of people were very mad about that. And, you know, if you set your anger about what he did aside, the core of that whole thing was once you become a Canadian, you are a Canadian. Period. And nothing can change that. So I started thinking, why would an ex-deputy premier of Alberta tell people that they're going to lose their citizenship? That's not true. So I went up to talk to him, and I said, hey, Thomas, I agree with the Forever Canadian thing, proud Canadian, want Alberta to be independent. I'm hoping to talk to you about these things because there's some things I think you're getting wrong. And his response was something like, I'm not going to debate, there's no debate, I'll never debate my Canadian citizenship. I said, neither will I, but there's some things that we need to talk about because Alberta's going to be asked this question, and the only way we're going to get the best outcome is if we talk about things. Right? Because Thomas, you want to stay in Canada. You think that's the best path for Alberta. I believe Alberta independence is the best path for Alberta. We should talk about these things openly, honestly, in the public forum and let the public make up their mind. Not go up on a stage and tell them what to think. So this conversation went back and forth. And you know, people were saying, oh, don't engage with them, don't talk to them. There's a group of people there that legit wanted to talk to other people and hear, you know, what is it that makes you want to stay in Canada? What are your, do you have any concerns about being in Canada? Those kind of things, just conversation. And it was don't engage, don't engage. I'm not answering your questions. And I was so puzzled at that. Because if we're going to be offered this opportunity to answer a question on restructuring our relationship with the country, is that not an important conversation to be had? Since when does talking about things, since when is it dangerous? Since when is conversation dangerous? Well, I'll tell you when it is. When you have a vested interest in the status quo and you cannot support your path and you cannot win a debate on it, the conversation is dangerous. When you know you can't win a debate, when you know the conversation, if had openly and honestly, will inevitably lead to a conclusion you don't like, that conversation is dangerous. But dangerous for who? Is it dangerous for you as Albertans? We all want the best path forward. We want the best future. So I tried to have this conversation with Thomas. And the conversation got a little bit stranger yet. Because I said to Thomas, please tell me what mechanism it is that Albertans can be stripped of their citizenship for exercising their democratic will. And he said, well, I'm not going to do your research for you. You need to talk to some constitutional lawyers. And I was like, well, I know, I mean, I've got 6 of them in my phone. I called one right away and I had a conversation with them. There is no mechanism that can happen. And I kind of got him into that part of the conversation. Well, what you are saying isn't true and it can't happen. And he said, and I said, the only way that can happen is through an act of parliament. If Ottawa legislates this through the Citizenship Act, which is a part of it's in the Constitution. And you know what he said? If Alberta chooses independence, this is what he said, I will make sure that every Albertan is stripped of their citizenship. Because, verbatim, because you don't get to have a divorce and then go over there for supper. Well, guess what? I've been divorced twice. And I've had lots of meals with my ex-wives. Why? Because just because we decided that we didn't want to be in that relationship did not mean that we weren't human beings and could treat each other as such. Yes, it was difficult in the beginning. It wasn't smooth sailing. There was things to get past. But we did. And for the greater good, we would sit down and break bread. We would eat cake. We would have cake and eat it too. That was he said these things three times. You don't get to have a divorce and then go over for supper. Yes, you do. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too. Why would we have cake if we're not going to eat it? These are the talking points that I encountered. And it was never an actual debate or a conversation about these things to get to a better outcome. It was shutting down of the conversation. And then when somebody came and did the whole, hey, your mother's calling, you know, you need to come over here because your mom's calling and you need to talk to your mom, just to get away from the conversation, I kind of, you know, he walked away and I left there kind of feeling stunned. Because if somebody is going to advocate for something and tell Albertans that one path is better than the other, should they not be willing to talk about it? I believe Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. We've done 90 meetings just like this, where I go in front of a crowd of people and I share my opinions, and then I invite you to challenge me. Tell me where you think I'm wrong, because I want the best outcome for Alberta. And I know I'm not going to get it if I refuse to have the conversation. Another thing we do, specifically with Let's Talk Alberta, when I see a politician gaslighting you, which is what our politicians do, correct? It doesn't matter what side they're on. When I see our politicians gaslighting you to get you to support something that is detrimental to you, or just maybe it's not good for you, but it's good for them, I write about it. I sit down and I think about it. When our premier says, Alberta independence, it's just not economically viable because it's going to cost $400 billion, and then it's going to cost $80 billion a year. I spend some time scratching my head, wondering why I've been abandoned by my conservative government. Then I start looking into it. And I do the research, and I do the reading, and I write about it. And I give these little things to you folks so that you can read what I've found out. For instance, this is called Show Me the Other Half of the Bill. Our premier said $400 billion to do this. She didn't mention what we get. She didn't mention the benefits. She told us one half of the ledger. One half that hadn't even been costed yet. I'm a burger flipper. I am a roughneck turned burger flipper from Mirror, Alberta. I am a nobody. And I can take the time to do this over a week. But our government says things to us to elicit an emotional response to shut down the conversation. How many Albertans do you think heard that $400 billion number and decided, ooh, that's too rich for my blood. I don't want Alberta independence? How many do you think did? A lot. And now some of them won't even talk about it. Those folks yesterday, when I picked up my Forever Canadian sign, which I'll proudly display because I will be Forever Canadian, they were worried about some interesting things. One of the things they said was, well, and Lukasik said, you will lose your pension. And I said, how? It's not an entitlement. That's something that you paid for. It's your investment, albeit you were compelled by law to invest in that investment. It's because it's like one of the worst investments you can make in your lifetime. But it's yours. So how would you lose it? And why would anybody in their right mind think that any other Canadian would want to punish other Canadians for choosing not to be governed by the same governance? That is ludicrous. Oh, your trade's going to be shut off. Really? Are you kidding me? The same country that recognized Kosovo was one of the first to recognize Kosovo after they self-declared independence. Even when many other countries in the world wouldn't, because it was messy and it was controversial. Canada said, you have the right to self-determination. We recognize you. Our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, not too long ago, recognized the sovereign state of Palestine. They want to be sovereign and self-determined. I don't agree with everything they do, for sure. But if the people want to self-determine, who is Mark Carney or anyone else to say that they shouldn't? And this is a country that Thomas Lukasik would have people believe would punish Albertans for removing themselves from the boot of the federal government that they haven't been able to effectively influence or affect in 120 years? I don't think so. I think there's more Canadians cheering Alberta on because guess what? Albertans aren't the only ones that feel this way. In a country of 45 or 50 million people, whatever we are now, it increases really fast, not because anyone's having babies. In a country that large, there's a lot of people that are not happy with the way things are going. There are a lot of people of faith who are beside themselves over Bill C-9, wondering what it means for their religious expression. Bill C-9, if you don't know what it is, it's the hate speech law, and they remove the exemption for religious speech. So if somebody preaches out of the first 4 or 5 books of the Bible and says something out of there, and someone finds it offensive because it contradicts their lifestyle, they can be fined or charged or whatever. There's a lot of Canadians that don't agree that we should be sending $45 billion to other countries to fight wars that we have nothing to do with, while our veterans starve and freeze to death on the streets of Edmonton and Calgary every year. Did you know that? In a nation like Canada and a province as wealthy as Alberta, we have veterans who die on the streets. And Canadians aren't happy about that. You think they want to change? Alberta has this unique opportunity in front of us because of some of the things that have made Albertans angry in the past. High taxes, the grain issues, having to buy our equipment from the east. Basically, that we desire, and every patriotic Canadian desires, that the great trade of the prairies go to build up our factories and workshops in the east and contribute to our prosperity in every way. Canadians are upset about that, and there's some legitimate grievances that Albertans have within Confederation. And those things have gotten us to a point where eventually enough people said, enough is enough. This is the 3rd federal election where we watched as they called the election and we had just left the polling station. That means, this isn't a time zone thing, if your ballot box is still sitting there and they call the election and tell you who your government is, did your vote matter? It didn't. And that 3 elections in a row this happened, after a reign of terror, policies imposed by Ottawa that were horrendous for Alberta. And don't give me this, oh, they bought you a pipeline. Bullshit, they bought us a pipeline. They had to clean up their own damn mess, pardon my French, because they bungled it so bad, somebody had to pick up the pieces. That wasn't a favor to Alberta. That was the federal government cleaning up their own mess, and now people are saying, oh, Alberta, you should just be happy with your pipeline. Well, no, I want my vote to matter. I want our pension, I want our Alberta pension plan that we will have to be paying our seniors enough that they do not have to choose between groceries and heat. That is ludicrous. Thomas Lukasik went to seniors' homes, and he told seniors, Alberta seniors, if you don't sign this, you will lose your pension. You will lose your citizenship and will be absorbed by the United States because Trump. And those seniors who depend, many of you are in this room, depend on those pension payments, were so scared that they voted to keep getting the bread box when we have an opportunity to do something so much better. An Alberta pension plan, if we kept our pension in Alberta, we overpay by $3 billion. Did you know with just that alone, we could double our pensioners' payments? Why wouldn't somebody want that? Because they're scared of Trump? Because somebody stands up there and says you'll lose your pension? I'm telling you, you won't lose your pension. Who do you want to believe? Do you want to believe Thomas or do you want to believe me? I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't believe either of us. Look into it yourself. Don't repeat what I say. Don't repeat what he says. Think about what I'm saying and try and prove me wrong. I took some time after we got home and I wrote this trifold. It's called, "You will not lose your pension and nobody can take your citizenship." This is my argument. And inside this, I back up my claim with facts. Legislation, Supreme Court precedent, all sorts of things. Anybody can pick this up and they can read it. And I think it's a damn shame that people will listen to what I say and then say, oh, you're just a liar and a grifter. I'm not going to look at it. What a shame. What if Thomas is wrong? What if he's wrong? What if your pension will get better like I say, or could get better? We have the opportunity to make it better. What if I'm correct when I say Alberta could easily manage its wealth and affairs and keep way more money here for Albertans? What if I'm right? You might have come to this meeting tonight wanting to challenge me on these things. Thank you very much. You might have come to this meeting just to try and trip me up or catch me saying something that isn't backed up by facts. And I might say something wrong from time to time. But if you don't bother to actually just consider what I'm saying and balance this out and weigh it out and consider the opportunity that you have as Albertans in October to answer a question on the future, your future, what a shame. Across the world, people have, to get the opportunity that you folks have, and we're gonna waltz into a ballot box. We're bound not into the box. Don't go in the ballot box. Elections Alberta doesn't like that. We're gonna walk into a polling station. And we're gonna pick up a piece of paper and look at it and read the instructions, right? And then we're going to mark a box, and that box is going to be extremely consequential to your future. Now, some of you folks in this room are like a fine wine. You are aged. And you may not reap the benefits that we have the opportunity to reap should we be able to manage our own futures as Albertans. But your kids will, and your grandchildren will. And if you don't weigh both options and consider them carefully and instead you let somebody tell you what to think, and you go into that ballot box and you tick a box that somebody else told you to tick, your kids and your grandkids will live with your choice. And across history, this choice hasn't necessarily been an easy one to get. Millions of people from time to time have died to be able to answer a question on self-determination. Do you know how amazing and how lucky we are to be offered that blessing? We have a moral obligation to have the discussion. When Alberta tells the government in October that we want to have this conversation, we get to talk about these things from a position of strength for the first time in 121 years. And Albertans get to decide what our future is going to look like. That's a big deal. But it is not without precedent. I'm going to close with this. I should have closed a long time ago. I think I'm way over. Since 1990, something like 38 new nations have been formed. In the last 100 years, we went from 50 nations to 183. Across history, countries inevitably get smaller. Why? Because as a society grows, not everybody wants to be governed the same way. And it's responsible to have the discussion and decide if you want to continue both being unhappy or go your separate ways and then have dinner together after. 50 nations to 183. 38 new nations since 1990. 80% of the new nations since 1990 have been done with a pen and paper, with a referendum, with legislation, with conversation. No violence. 80%. And here Alberta is, with our future in front of us. What an opportunity. And what a shame if we don't have the conversation. That's what Let's Talk Alberta is about. It's not about me telling you what to do. It's about me sharing my opinion with you, advocating for what I believe in, and inviting you to challenge me. It's also about the intimidating yellow buckets that Jasper's holding over there. I don't like this part. Let's Talk Alberta is funded 100% by you folks. Thomas Lukasik did a live stream in which he said that the reason why my bus is 28% larger than his short bus, it's actually way bigger than 28% bigger. It's like, I don't know, 20,000 pounds more, is because I made a terrible financial decision and I bought it with a little help from a friend of mine. And then Albertans just like you stepped up and said, we want to help you advocate for the conversation. So we put graphics on it. Now it is a rolling billboard for a conversation about Alberta's future. Not telling you what to do, what to vote, asking for the conversation. It's funded by you. So when the buckets come around, if you can, don't feel compelled to, and if you believe in what we're doing, please consider supporting us. And if you're the person beside you put something in the bucket, pay attention to what color that bill is, because you don't want to be outdone by your neighbors.
Super chat on YouTube or
this is the one time where peer pressure is okay. So you may pressure your neighbors to put something in the bucket. I try and be very comedic about this because I really don't like asking, but if we didn't ask, we wouldn't be able to do these events. So thank you very much for your support. And I said I was going to close with that other thing, but I'm going to close with this. This isn't a partisan thing. Yes, I consider myself a conservative. Yes, I believe Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. But this idea transcends parties and political stripe and all that. The idea of having open conversations in public so that every person can make up their mind on what our future looks like, that's what this is about, and that is the most important thing to me. And unfortunately, there are times where we don't get to answer all the questions because it's busy. You know, I'm sure the live stream is going crazy because I've said some off-color things tonight. We really do want to answer your questions as best we can. And no, we don't know everything. But if there's something we don't know, we will tell you. And then next time we'll come back and have the answer. Oh, yeah. So we're going to have about let's do a 15-minute break tonight. And the reason why we're going to do a 15-minute break tonight is because I've heard that there's some people that want to take some pictures with the Let's Talk Alberta bus. So we're going to give you a 15-minute break and stretch your legs, get a picture with the bus, come back in, and we're going to have a Q&A. And it's going to be a good one. My friend Jasper there, he loves watching me sweat because he says that I'm an overweight Canadian. Actually, he thinks all Canadians are overweight, but I just think Europeans are tiny. He wants to see us sweat. So bring your hard questions. And if you're shy and you don't want to get up and ask your question in front of everyone, go see Sandy and tell her your question or write it down. We want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. Thank you very much.
And I know that Jasper loves my microphones. Jasper absolutely loves my microphones. The wireless microphones.
Can you hear me now? You can hear me. That's fantastic. Well, there you go, folks. We are in Redcliff, Alberta, and we're about to have the most exciting and sweat-filled Q&A that we've had yet, because I know the people in this crowd have some really tough questions. I know they want to challenge us and really dig into this idea of Alberta self-determination, and I am really looking forward to it. So we'll see you in about 15 minutes, but you know it's going to be 20 because we're always late. It is a little bit like herding cats, but that's okay. Who doesn't love cats? See you soon.
before we get started, the speakers will start working their way this way. I've got a couple of favors to ask. The first favor is the algorithms play havoc with our posters when we put them up. So if you could go to letstalkalberta.com or freedomcalendar.net and download a copy of the posters for upcoming events and send them to people that you might know and tell them to share them with people that they may know, and so on and so on. It's what I call the shampoo method. If everybody remembers the Clairol commercials from the 70s, you tell two friends, they'll tell two friends, and so on and so on. And as you can tell, I know lots about shampoo. The other thing is, if you've got prime highway frontage, or you know somebody that's got prime highway frontage, as you look back at the back of the room, you will see one of our 8x16 banners, and no, not all of them have my ugly face on them. Only 3 of them, and unfortunately those are the 3 I have with me tonight. But we also have the 4x8s, and we really need to get them up on highway frontage, especially on Highway 1, Highway 16, and Highway 2. So if you know anybody that's got prime highway frontage, come see me, and we'll get it arranged to get one of those big banners up. And the other thing is, they mentioned it already, but there's the merch tables at the back. There's the Whistle Stops table. There's Let's Talk Alberta has a table there as well, and so does Bahra has a table there as well. So if you felt like grabbing something and looking good in blue, go check it out. Okay, well, I will ask that the speakers come forward, and we'll get started with the Q&A. And I will hand this microphone to Jasper.
So during the Q&A session, the way it's going to work is that Jasper will have the microphone. Jasper over here on your right side, he has the Q&A microphone, okay? So you know this is being live streamed right now, so by speaking on the microphone, you consent for your questions to be aired and become public domain. If you do not want to speak on the microphone, Sandy over there, she can take your questions on a written format and will ask you on your behalf. So for the questions, if you have questions verbally, just gas the microphone to Jasper and he will come to the microphone to you.
But before we get started with the Q&A, and Max, I think I'm a little loud. Before we get started on the Q&A, I just want to point something out. One of the things that I was told when I met Lukasik was that if I don't like Canada, I can just move. And I didn't realize until today, there are many people who have done that, right? We all know someone who's left Canada because they don't like the what's happening here. And that's perfectly fine, but there really are 2 different types of people. There's people who leave where they're at because they don't like what it's like. Thomas Lukasik's parents left Poland with Thomas when he was 3 years old because they didn't like how it was. But there's another kind of person. There's the kind of people that stay and hand out pamphlets in secret to try and bring down communism and bring democracy to their nation, right? I don't want to leave Alberta and walk away from this opportunity. I want to be present and do everything I can for this place to make sure that Alberta can stand up and lead. That's what I want to do. So I think that's important to remember. There are 2 different types of people. There's those that leave, And Thomas thinks that I should leave because I disagree with the governance structure. And there's those that fix the things from within by standing up for themselves. I'm the second one.
So if you've got any question, I will come over to you. This young lady over here came over to me, so state your name and your question.
Okay, my name is Barb Ramsey, and I have a question for Benoit. All that stuff you were saying and the stuff you wrote in your book is very interesting. And my question is, if all these things are allowed in the Constitution, why in the world have we not done them? Like, why? Like, who's getting the payoff? Why would we not proceed with even one of them? That's my question. It seems common sense to me.
I believe it's the result of social engineering of the prairies, the way Clifford Sifton managed to choose the immigration to constitute the basis of the prairies in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I believe that's one of the reasons. The other reason is that I believe that it developed a political class who always saw the federal as superior as them. And there's some example, like the longest lasting premier of Alberta, Ernest Manning. What did he did when he retired? He was named senator in Ottawa. It was kind of a thank you for your service. Here, come to Ottawa now in the big league, and come admire the view from here. And I believe it did develop, it did created a political class of Alberta who always thought that Ottawa, and now even the judicial system, we can see it by the reaction of a judge making a judgment against 200,000 citizens that sign a petition, has more power than the citizens themselves. I believe this is, that demonstrates how our political class in this province deal with both judicial and federal things. And I believe that the big difference with Quebec, why Quebec went so much in, it's because they've been persecuted. And when you are persecuted and not just put asleep like Albertan, you react way harder. I mean, so much that since 1978, for instance, when I speak about even judgment, we had, in Quebec, they are at the 5th round at the Supreme Court on their regulation on French speaking in the province. So for the past 50 years, the Supreme Court judge against the Supreme Court, like they say to Quebec, this is unlawful. You have to change your law. You have to repeal your law. What Quebec said, well, no, we won't repeal the law, we'll change it. What don't you like in it? And then they change a couple of paragraphs, and then they go for a second round of Supreme Court. So, and the reaction of Quebec is that what can they do? A judgment for the Supreme Court? Who cares? Like, we are the people. So, and then they push that to the point where they start doing and not even asking for, neither for permission, neither for excuse. You do and you never ask for, like, if you don't like it, sue us. And once we get the judgment, we'll decide if we like it or not. And if our people are still for it, well, who cares? We're judgment. Yeah, you can put your judgment where we think. And it's that attitude, that political attitude, that is missing around Alberta, around Canada, in fact. And I believe it's missing here in the province as well. The biggest problem of this province right now is that we're too rich, too comfortable, and we don't want to rock the boat. No, despite being the one that contribute the most, we're the less taxed, the youngest, the one that has the less economical problem, and I believe that it makes us easier to get asleep. So I
have interesting. I think I really appreciate that you asked Ben that question, But I think that you're asking the wrong person. Who's your MLA? Ask your MLA why your MLA hasn't advocated for the same type of sovereignty that Quebec has. Who's your premier?
Their MLA.
That's why I'm asking. So ask her. You know, you're the boss. Quebec has done it. Why haven't you? I asked her that question at a meeting in Red Deer a couple of Wednesdays ago, and she answered a different question entirely. So, but maybe you can get her to answer it for you.
Does anybody know what Canada's motto is, what our slogan is? A different one. It's peace, order, and good government. Peace, order, and good government. That's what Canada's about. And I'll tell you why I think it's that way. Over the course of history, what was the purpose of British colonies? Why did Britain expand the way they did everywhere in the world? It was to extract the resources and produce and enrich London, right? Canada in the beginning was really no different. And actually, it was France was the same thing, no? Yeah. It was a resource colony. So what Canada has done is they've created this structure in which those who keep peace and order are rewarded quite richly. How many people in this room know at least a half a dozen historical names with Sir in front of them, right? Knighthoods, political appointments, Senate appointments, elevated into the London elite back in Britain. This is the way it's always been. So when you ask why do our MLAs not advocate for Alberta, it's because there's always something better. There's always something bigger for them. The golden claw of federal politics, they want it to come down and scoop them into a way higher salary. We don't pay our MLAs enough. I'm sorry, we don't. And they want a pension, and they want those appointments, and they want that exit plan. Their ladder is like, it only goes one way. It goes to federal politics. So if you advocate for Alberta specifically, you're rejecting the idea of elevating into the federal sphere. You don't get Senate appointments. You don't get any of that stuff. So our MLAs who want to have a career in politics, that's what they do. And that's what they've historically done. I found it quite interesting. I didn't know that it was actually my dear friend Jason Kenney who lobbied the provincial government to remove our MLA's pensions. Did you know that? Why would somebody advocate to remove our MLA's pensions? Is it to save money? No, I don't think so. I think it's because if our MLAs don't have pensions and they're insecure about their future after politics, they're going to be considering the federal sphere, and they won't stand up for Albertans. That's why you don't hear any politicians championing the idea of Alberta independence. Well, there's a few, but not very many. Most of them, they'll say to me, hey, Chris, I really support you and I really want Alberta to be independent, but I just can't say anything. They can't say anything because they're more concerned about their own future than they are the future of Albertans. And that's not to say, I'm not trying to condemn them, because all of us as individuals, we have a tendency to do what protects us or puts us first, even if it's subconsciously. So we might, from time to time, think we're doing the best thing, but really, it's the thing that benefits us the best, and we just justify it through that. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, the other thing about just on that, when a provincial politician don't have a pension, they will work their way out with private corporation that can afford the type of salary that will entice them to work for them, and this is why we end up with quasi-monopolies in this province. This is why we end up with 5 companies that control our oil, with 2 companies that control all our beef industry. We produce 75% of the beef of Canada, and that beef is processed by 2 corporations, one American, Cargill, and one Brazilian, JBS. So we don't even control our ranch anymore. And why is the policies allowed that? Is because JBS and Cargill are very good employers when you've been a politician afterwards. So, and it's the same in everything. Our used car market is controlled 80% now by Go Auto. One group controls 80% of all the used car in the province. So the only thing that the little dealership can have access to is the complete garbage in these auction house there. So anyway, so our province is prone to let go the control to very specific group that then lobby our MLAs by promising them a way out after their 4 years.
Thank you. First of all, I'm a brand new Albertan. I've only been here for a month. And I love it. It's so nice to live in a province of which I can be proud. I was living in Victoria, British Columbia. But I'm originally from Northern Ontario. I lived 2/3 of my life in Sudbury, Ontario, and for 26 years I lived in Victoria. I have a question, but before that, just, you know, when it goes to how come Quebec gets that and Alberta doesn't, I believe that if Quebec was the one giving the equalization payments to the rest of the country, they wouldn't be getting as much freedom as they have. They don't want Alberta to go because Alberta is the golden goose.
No, I will correct you on that. Quebec.
Just look at equalization.
No,
That's your answer.
No, that's not so.
I don't
no,
agree. Okay,
no,
we'll agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, but I will explain you
that's not
something.
my question, though.
But I will just explain something now to speak about Quebec and equalization. There's no Quebecers that knows about equalization. None. Nobody in Quebec speaks of equalization. They're not aware of it. Truly. They don't speak of it. They don't hear of it. And you know what? In Quebec, 54% of the population still is French-speaking only. So whatever runs on the English media and all that, they have no clue. Okay, so Quebec, and I will tell you something. Quebec will anytime advocate for sovereignty before money. Anytime. So for Quebec to lose.
Let's take the equalization payments away and see what they say.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, right.
No. I'm telling you, it's only 8% of their budget. Equalization payment right now cannot be removed. Not because of Quebec, because of the Constitution. It's been embedded in our Constitution. So now. No, but
It's okay. We'll agree to disagree.
I invite you to read my book on equalization. I explain how we can do exactly what Quebec does.
I'm a history teacher.
Okay, well.
Okay?
Well,
I'm a retired
I invite you to
history
read that book.
Let's get to the question.
Okay, my question is, when you say, and it's not because, I'm totally pro-sovereignty, and the answer would not influence my position. I'm a retired Ontario teacher, and I get my pension from them. Even though it wouldn't change my position, even if it meant losing my pension, which I need, but I know God would take care of me. Other people might have similar questions, and I wonder, have you looked at that?
So when it comes to pensions, the first question you should ask is, if you move somewhere, are you going to lose your pension? If you move to the United States, would you lose your pension? If you move to Holland, are you going to lose your pension? You don't. I don't think so. The teachers' pension fund has a portability clause built into it, and it's not something that you're getting for free. It's something that you've paid into. You've invested into it. You own it. So for somebody to say that you're not going to get that anymore if you move, they're saying we're going to penalize you for choosing where you're going to live, and that's just not how pensions work. If you don't believe me, you can. And actually, you know what? Don't believe me. Don't take my word for it. When you go home tonight, look, you should have documentation on the details of your pension that you receive. You can go online and you can look at all that stuff and you can check for portability clause. But I can tell you there are retired teachers who live in Mexico. There's retired teachers who live in Europe, and they all get their pensions. So if it's different for some than the other, I don't know. But yeah,
I will look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, and absolutely. Same with the Canada Pension Plan. If you don't believe me that you will not lose your pension, look into the fine print. Read the legislation. It's something that you own. It's not something that you're just given.
To add to that a little bit, my wife and I spent 14 years in Mexico. She's a retired teacher. She gets her pension from the Alberta Retired Teacher Fund, and it was never missed. It's there every month. Same thing with the OAS. It was there every month. The only thing that might be in question if you live in a foreign country is the OAS supplement, because it's designed to compensate for the cost of living in Canada. Now, one other thing, when I was attending a course an Army course in Kingston, we had a number of young officers there, one of whom was from a graduate from CEGIP in Quebec, and he had no idea what equalization even was. It's not a topic of conversation that Quebecers have. When you're in the military and you talk to people about equalization and the impact, they don't know. And they have no, they don't know about it, they don't care about it. And as far as Quebec is concerned, it only represents 8.7% of their budget. If it were to be lost, they'd say, oh, well, too bad, and come up with some other way of raising the money, including the possibility of increasing their income tax because they wouldn't pay federal tax anymore were they to separate. So it's a non-issue for Quebecers. It's an issue for us because we pay it.
I didn't believe that until I saw Premier Legault on the news saying somebody was asking something about if Quebec was independent or whatever, losing equalization. And he said, we don't want it, we're not a welfare state. We don't care, we're not a welfare state, is what Legault, he said that. And I thought, what? That's odd, like why would the Premier say that? And then I started thinking about this, and when I got to know Ben and kind of have a better understanding of what Quebec is, because I didn't really before, I realized sovereignty is more important to them than that money. So they're like, no, we want to be sovereign, even though that means it might be harder. We want to be sovereign, and that's what's important. So again, I would encourage you, I don't know how you would do this, maybe reach out to some Quebecers or read some stuff coming out of Quebec. Or find that video of Legault saying that Quebec is not a welfare state and we don't care about the equalization, because that was a really big surprise to me.
And no, we can't. It's constitutional. It's in the Constitution. Yeah, of course. It's in the Constitution. We cannot cancel it. And I will add that Quebec will be our fiercest ally in the sovereignty that we're looking for, because Quebec does support sovereignty in there. And right now, in the French media in Quebec, I know they've been interviewing me a lot since we started. They are highly interested at what Alberta is doing, and they are cheering for Alberta independence.
Just one thing on equalization, and this is something I didn't know until a few years back. We don't actually pay. We don't cut a check for equalization. That's not the way it works. The federal government collects our taxes, and then they give us back money and in transfers and services. And what they don't give back is what they distribute via equalization. So even if Alberta said, well, we want to cancel equalization, it's a non-starter because we don't cut the check in the first place. The only way we could ever control that, even remotely, is if we collected our own taxes. That's the only way. So when you say we want to cancel that, you're really saying we should collect our own taxes, manage our wealth and affairs.
But what I bring in that book, it's basically, so Quebec, out of the equalization that they received 3.6 billion more than what they should. Why? Because natural resources is part of the calculation of equalization. And Quebec, since 1944, since they nationalized their hydroelectricity, they made a deal that the population of Quebec will always pay less than everybody else in North America for their power. So they have rate D. And rate D is as soon as you put a meter in your house, you get rate D. And that cost Hydro-Quebec $7 billion a year in revenues because they give a break to their citizen. And that $7 billion a year makes them look $7 billion poorer than what they really are if they would sell at regular rate. And the equalization payment calculate half of your value. So basically, Quebec receive 3.6 billion that they shouldn't because they give 7 billion to their people. And we can do the same. We have the right to ask for royalties in gas and oil in kind instead of in cash. And in my little book here, I have a program that would be split in 3-tier program that wouldn't cost a penny to our budget, but that will make us look poorer than what the feds are actually calculating by giving us free gas from September 15 to June 15. We just pay the distribution cost, and by when the oil goes higher than what we budgeted, to give us 1/3 of the windfall in direct discount to the pump, and that would give us the same advantage in Quebec get with our own energy, and so I present that in that book, that principle of just doing exactly what Quebec does by putting back money in your pocket, and when the barrel of oil hit $100, that our pump don't hit $2. That the more the barrel goes up, the more our pump goes down because we're the one producing it.
Hi, they call me Dave sometimes. I'd just like to comment about pensions. I'm a retired pipe fitter. I moved from Edmonton, which is a local pipe fitting industry town, to Osoyoos, BC. There I received my pension, without a doubt. I lived in Edmonton, and I moved to Osoyoos, and I moved to Medicine Hat. Because somebody said hi to me, scared the heck out of me, I thought, holy. Then I thought, this is the right place to be. I think it doesn't matter where you go, you will receive your pension. They cannot take it away because it's your money that you donated to the pension plan, and it's coming back to you with interest. Those are the things that we need to talk about. Another thing too, take your math, do a little bit of math, and see how much your pension should be if you live to 19 or till you're 99 years old. Your pension should be, and mine should be, anywhere in the range of $3,300 to $3,400 a month. And that wouldn't get used up, or my pension would be used up once I turned 99. I think everybody should sit down and think about how much money you put into the pension plan. Figure it out. If you're retired at 65 and you want to live till 1999, how much would you get per month to use up all of the funds you put in? I'm telling you, it's a shock. Thank you very much. And by the way, you guys did a fabulous job tonight. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you, and that's why it's important to talk about these things, right? If people realized the scam that our seniors and our pensioners are facing, they should be marching in the streets asking for change and for reform. But when the conversation gets shut down by saying, hands off my pension, just let me have this little pittance of a pension, and I don't want to talk about anything else, what if they're wrong? And what if it could be so much better? I really think that our seniors are being done a huge disservice by using their pension as a fear tactic to prevent them from having something better.
Yeah, but at the same time, I believe it's the duty of the provincial government to present a clear plan on pension, and they fail to do it because they say, oh, Ottawa never gave us the money. Well, we don't need to know how much Ottawa will give us on the fund, because just with the basic money that we pay every year, we overpay $3 billion than Ottawa put in your pocket. So just with what we pay right now, there's room to build a plan that will be twice better than what we have right now, strictly by using what we have, even if Ottawa don't give us a penny back, which they don't have the right to do. So I believe that the fault, for me, of the government is their own fault, that they haven't put, they haven't been serious about it, and they haven't put a plan forward that you can look at and say, yes, this is better than that. And I do agree that unless you have a clear plan in front of you, why would you let go what you have for something you don't know? So, and this is why I wrote that book on the Canada Pension Plan. I put in there, I think, a lot of principle imported from Quebec, but as well from Chile. Chile has a self-directed pension plan that has been doing since the early 1980s, and it's a success. And they give to their people a statement of account every year, and then they give like a portion of it. They can decide investment A, B, C, D, E, from super risky to super safe, and you can choose where that portion goes, or you can choose to take that portion and self-invest it. If you want to buy gold or silver with it, for instance, well, you have that opportunity as well, because it's your money, and you should be able to manage it.
Okay, thank you. My name's Drew Barnes, and I just have a couple points, please. First of all, to me, this whole discussion starts with us collecting our own taxes and controlling the money. That's where it starts. As an example, when I was in Edmonton, I believe currently right now, and Alberta has for a number of years, we collect our own corporate taxes, but we don't collect our own personal taxes. Well, I believe that the government of Alberta makes more money in interest and penalties collecting corporate taxes than it costs them to collect it. I believe personal taxes would be the same way. Penalties are onerous, they're not right, but creating the control of our own money is going to go a long way to setting the rules. And why it's important, I was there during COVID, and the federal government has a way of extracting a lot of money out of Alberta and out of all of Canada. And in Alberta, they put about $9 billion back for healthcare with lots of strings. $4 or $5 billion back for education with even more strings. During COVID, one of the things that was heard time and time again about why all provinces in Alberta had to lock down and follow exactly the same rules is if we don't do it, Ottawa will not give us the money and Ottawa will not buy our bonds. That is why we have to control our own money. The two things, though, that lead to me with that, though, is Ottawa not concerned? A lot of us have RSPs, which are an obligation to Ottawa and Alberta of 20 to 50%. How come the fact that RSPs coming out of the Ottawa Treasury hasn't been part of the discussion? Chris, I do want to set the record a bit straight. I was MLA for 11 years, and thanks to every Albertan in this room, you all paid me about $22,000 a year for my RSP. That was more than adequate. That was a good retirement, and I had control over it. So I appreciated that part rather than a pension. And I've got my own ideas as to how to handle this discussion, but I would like to hear it from each and every of you three. The argument I hear about is we're landlocked. Now, I know we're just as much policy locked as we're landlocked, and there's things we can do. But what is Alberta going to do if we have the opportunity to be sovereign? Thank you.
I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say that Ben probably wrote about this in one of his books that are available back there, and they're very valuable.
And they're not particularly expensive. You know, everybody could afford one.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I did. So two things. I have enough Canada Revenue Agency here where I speak about these straws that we control, and I link it to what is strict provincial jurisdiction. Health is strictly provincial jurisdiction. We can tell Ottawa, get out of there. Education is strictly provincial jurisdiction. We can tell Ottawa to get out of there. Here in Alberta, on top of that, we have ATB. No ATB, the political class, because of past scandal with the West Edmonton Mall and their stuff, kind of shut down the political class from controlling it, but we forget that this is the Alberta Treasurer Branch, and we can take over, we can get rid of that woke board there and put like a provincial board that makes sense, and then we should keep our money here because ATB got its own rail to deal with Ottawa. And then we have 12 credit unions in this province, provincially regulated. All of money should stay there. The 12 credit unions plus ATB, it would have a double effect. First, in federally regulated institution, in every bank account, the protection is $100,000 maximum. of insurance. So if there's a collapse of something, of a bank, of TD, and Alberta got a bank account with $2 billion in it, well, now we get 100,000 back. Where everything provincially regulated, we're 100%, we're back up our own deposit. So first reason. Secondly, I believe that by just keeping the float of Alberta within the province, within the credit union, to the ratio of their size, it will increase their lending capacity to Albertans. So again, it's Alberta money serving Albertans. Then finally, for the landlocked here, page 187 of my book, I have a concept here that in our Constitution, we can go see the Premier of Northwest Territory and negotiate something with them and say, you know what, guys, why don't you become Alberta? And if we do a referendum between Northwest Territory and Alberta, the same deal, the same question, well, then Northwest Territory can become Alberta. And if that happens, then no more landlocked, because then we would have access to the Baltic Sea and to the Arctic Sea, and that would have two things. First, it would enable us to bring our pipeline to the sea without asking the federal permission, because then it would be provincial territory up to the sea. Secondly, it would position us to be able to take control of the Northwest Passage, and the control of the Northwest Passage, even though the ship will have to pay fee to the federal, because federal jurisdiction, you cannot use it without icebreakers. So if Alberta built a series of icebreakers, we can take control of that Northwest Passage and bank on the money to get ship go through there to go to Europe. The third thing that it will give, and it's access, and it will, Northwest Territory is starving to get access to their own minerals and their own resources, and they can't because they're a territory controlled by the feds, totally locked in their development. Alberta has all the expertise and all that to help them. So I believe it's not utopia. I think it's doable. We have an MLA here in Alberta named Shane Getson that has been working with them, with the Yukon, with all the territories around. And by the way, he's the one that gave me that idea during conversation. Finally, as well, to help building all these new tracks, just a couple of pages before, I'm talking about the province acquiring 51% of CP Rail. Why CP Rail? Because CP Rail bribed John A. Macdonald to create this country by giving him $260,000 in 1865 to create the coast-to-coast railway. John A. Macdonald had to resign as the first Prime Minister of Canada because of that scandal, and then came back another mandate later. But CP Rail gained a special status. It's the only company in the country that their charter goes beyond the Common and beyond Supreme Court and all that. They're linked directly to the Crown. And that gives them permission to lay track wherever they want, and then they can lay pipelines beside their track. So if you own CP Rail and you build a railway to the north and pipelines along these railways, you short the time to build from 10 years to 2 years. So anyway, so that's part of giving a vision to our province to go further.
Just an observation about strings and federal financing. The idea of the feds charging too much income tax in order to create a pool of money that they can then offer back to provinces, if the provinces do what the federal government wants them to do, is historically a means of the federal government sidestepping the Constitution. And there's only one way to get around that, and that's to say no when they offer the string. At the end of the string, just say no, we don't want it, and that might cause some short-term pain, because they may actually withhold that money. But so what? The idea is to operate in conjunction or in obedience to the Constitution, get them the hell out of our business, and show them that we are serious about doing what is our responsibility and obligation under the law of the land.
I just want to bring a caveat to what I'm saying about Quebec and doing what Quebec does. I want to do the principle that Quebec does. I want to do what Quebec does. Quebec is a socialist, almost communist province. And this is not our culture here, but there's a way to use the same tools we're putting our twist to it, our conservative way of doing things. And secondly, when you look at when that gentleman, you were your MLA, speak about collecting our own taxes, corporate taxes, it is the tax collection system the most efficient in the world. CRA cost about $2.15 per thousand of collection. Our corporate tax system in Alberta costs us 31 cents per $1,000 of collection. We are the champions in cost and systems to collect taxes. So we just have to apply that to our personal taxes, and even then we're going to save money on even the administration of collecting our taxes compared to CRA.
And I'll chime in because I just want the last word. But first, I just wanted to point out, Drew, I appreciate that you were willing to stand up and speak out when you saw something going wrong, even though you had to go against the status quo. And I know you put a lot on the line for that, so I just want to say thank you for doing that. So I want to bring this back around, the landlocked thing and the tax collection thing. I want to bring it back to an opportunity. Is anyone in this room particularly happy with the Alberta's ability to get things done in the last 15 years when it comes to interprovincial things? We're not very happy with how things have gone, right? We have an MOU and we have an agreement that allows Alberta now to apply for pipelines. That's what we have right now. After all this time, all this work, we have got permission to ask, okay? So what I'm excited about is the opportunity for Alberta, for the first time in history, to negotiate as equals. Trade is not something that people mess around with because they feel something. Trade is mutually beneficial for both parties. That's how trade deals work. The parties come together, they say this is going to benefit us both the best, let's get into this trade arrangement. I don't believe for 1 second that British Columbia, or Eastern Canada for that matter, would be punitive to Alberta and shoot themselves in the foot because they were upset about Alberta self-determination, right? British Columbia needs to move things from the Port of Vancouver to Eastern Canada. Eastern Canada wants to move things to Vancouver. It benefits everybody to trade. But right now, we have to apply to the federal government to ask permission to think about doing the thing. And independent Alberta, we skip that and we become the adults, and then we negotiate those things on our own terms. And I think that's a great thing. So the landlocked question or argument, that's the second question only to pensions. And it's one of the best ones to answer because you can really focus on what the opportunity is. Now on tax collection, I was very disappointed when I heard one of our MLAs say that there didn't appear to be a business case for Alberta to collect its own taxes because it's going to cost money. And then I start thinking, wait a minute, the narrative is sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. And we know that the first step to becoming sovereign is the golden rule. He who has the gold rules, collect your own taxes. How can you be sovereign if you're accepting our own money back from the federal government with strings? How can you be sovereign if, in order to fund our health care, we have to agree to spend, what was it, $7.5 billion on arrows, hand sanitizers, and masks that went in the garbage? Like these are the things that are all opportunities, and I'm not saying that Alberta wouldn't choose that. I don't think they would, but it would be up to us. It's your money. You should be able to decide how it's used. And right now, under the current system, the current structure, Albertans' voices just aren't enough to do that. And I am excited about the opportunity to do it.
Hey Scott, it's Brandy Kim. I had a question, and you might be able to, some of you guys could answer. I get questions lots about who decides our future. And of course, I talk to them about after we win all these referendums, that we will have a constitutional convention, as I understand it. But they're like, who? Because I think when they look on Facebook, they're like, who leads this? Is it APP? Is it Let's Talk? Who is in the room? And I try to tell them, I'm like, you do. You can be there. You can vote. You can be a part of it. And they just don't understand how they can be a part of that. Can anybody explain to those in the room that may have a question about that? Who builds our country after and how?
It's important to ask first, great question, by the way. It's important to ask first, who decides our future now? Who decides our future? We manage a lot of things provincially, but who decides our future in Canada? Ontario and Quebec. I don't have anything against Ontario people and Quebec people, but I believe that the decisions that are made should benefit or be detrimental to the people that make them. Why? Because if you suffer the consequences for your own decisions, your decisions get better. If Alberta consistently suffers consequences for decisions other people make that aren't affected by those decisions, are the decisions going to get any better? No. Confederation will keep using Alberta as the sacrificial lamb in trade disputes. Oh, we're going to put our elbows up, dump Crown Royal on the ground, and shut off Alberta oil going to the United States as a bargaining chip. Well, wait a minute, that's 150,000 Alberta jobs. Can we talk about this, please? Right? This is the thing. I believe that Albertans should decide their future. I really do. Now, when it comes to a leader, that's a really interesting question. And I think it's also important to note, this is not about a leader. This is about you folks, Albertans, period. That's why it's progressed where it is. A leader can be bought or taken out or shamed or whatever. They can be controlled through whatever means. But the people, a grassroots movement that is just working towards a common goal together, and when I say common goal, I'm saying a better future for Alberta, the best future for Alberta, within or external to Confederation. That's why this movement has been as successful as it is. Look at the independence parties. What happened to them? They all had a leader, and something happened, and they imploded. Look at our politicians. We have, politicians that we put all this hope in. That politician's going to save us. And then when they're not perfect, it implodes. That's why, eventually Alberta will have leaders that rise up and say, hey, we want to govern, we want to be your elected representatives, will you support us? And then if you believe you should, you support them. But this is about you for now. Now the part about the Constitution and this, Alberta right now, we're facing a question on self-determination. If Alberta chooses to take control of their future through self-determination, then we would talk about a constitution. That is really, really exciting to me. It's really exciting that Albertans would get to write a constitution for us, because the constitution we have right now is, Ben has some points that are good about it, but I look at that and I realize that was written from a perspective of a governing structure that wanted peace, order, and good government. And it was something that they decided, passed in British Parliament as an act of Parliament, and imposed it on the Dominion of Canada. Years later, it came home to Canada. We added the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, our government did, and that was our Constitution. But it's not a by the people Constitution. That's why we have things like Section 1 that allows the government to put someone like me in jail when I commit the crime of protesting what the government's doing on my own property peacefully. I want a constitution for Alberta, or for Albertans, that is a we the people constitution, that tells the government what their limits are, and acknowledges that you as human beings have rights and freedoms given to you by God, not by government. That's the difference, and that's why this isn't about a leader, it's about you.
I have a bit of a different perspective on how that might happen. Anybody in here that's ever had the opportunity to manage or run an organization knows that within that organization, within that group of people, there are those who are natural leaders. Your job as the boss would be to recognize the natural leader and make sure that they're on the same page you are, so that you don't have conflict in your organization. But the reason I say this is that when you as a group, when we get together in groups throughout Alberta, when we finally decide to begin looking at what our Constitution should be, we will get together, and there may be somebody who's leading a discussion, but natural leaders will arise. They'll talk about issues, about process, about things that we need to do, about what we feel, and what our position is with respect to our ethos and our character. And those leaders will appear as we develop through it. And we as a group will say, okay, we've come to some conclusions about what our Constitution should look like, and we'll send representatives of that group who have arisen from the group, and they'll go together with others who have risen in other groups, and they'll get together and do the same things. And there'll be a process by which, not by which leaders are chosen, but by which leaders appear. And they will develop because people recognize them for what they are, and they will have support, not because they ask for it or say, I want to be the leader, but because you have recognized in them something that you want for your Constitution and for your country. And that'll be the basis for how our Constitution starts. At some point in time, there'll have to be a gathering of a smaller group where the pens and pencils are put to paper and the actual Constitution is drafted. But the essence of that document will be what you decide in those meetings you have throughout the province when we're looking at what we want our country to be. It'll be you that makes that decision. It'll be your people who make that decision, and it will be one that you arrive at through consultation among yourselves.
And again, in my book, yeah. No, I just like, we can look what Quebec did before the question in 1995. So this is an article of a newspaper. When I was 22 years old, the government called Commission Avenir Québec, so Commission of the Future of Quebec, to answer all of these questions. And from January 95 to March, I believe, 95, that commission across the province listened to 55,000 people and memoirs and groups that express what they wanted as a future of Quebec. And the report was filed prior to the referendum, answering all of these questions. So I believe that again, I pray to see a real democratic process starting in this province to let people, interest groups, all that express themselves on the future of this province. And somehow it's a bit sad that there's only a small group like initiated by Chris that does that with Let's Talk Alberta, because that was done by the government in Quebec in 95, what we're doing tonight, and it went a step further with a panel receiving memoirs and receiving expression of interest from individuals and groups all across the province. And I believe that whatever happened, whatever the vote, I believe that we're ripe for that in this province, for that movement.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. It's also live streamed via freedomcalendar.net and also on the Facebook page of the Whistle Stop Cafe. We're doing this with almost 20 speakers, and around the province what we travel, we're having over like 100, 200 volunteers. So we're doing this with love. There are a couple of questions that Sandy has been given, and I think it's time that the question has to be asked now.
So 2 of the questions have pretty much been answered, but I just want to acknowledge that they were asked, and it was about explaining what happens to the CPP, OAS, GIS. The other question that has been answered was, a lady said people keep asking her about who the leadership will be, and when will we know? So third question was, and I guess I would direct this to Ben, how did Quebec deal with First Nations issues?
And it's not, what is it, 9:30, 10:30? So make it quick, Ben.
Okay.
Yes.
1978, René Lévesque as a premier made a declaration recognizing all First Nation Quebec as nations. And as such, they said, you are nations, this is your territory, you do whatever you want on your territory. We are nation, this is our territory, we do whatever we want on our territory. And this is how Quebec dealt with First Nation. So much that in 1990, there's a small municipalities in Quebec named Oka that wanted to expand their golf course. And there's a Mohawk that said, no, 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 this is our stuff. And Quebec reminded them, no, 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 no. This is not your territory, this is our territory. It ended up on a standoff that lasted something like a month. There was one victim, a police that was shot by the Mohawk policeman, but again, Quebec uses provincial police to deal with that because they have a provincial police and they don't need to ask permission to Ottawa to deal with their internal problem. So Quebec respect First Nation for who they are, where they are, and they require the same reciprocity that respect us, Quebec Nation, on our territory, where we are and how we are.
Sandy, before you go on to the next question, I just want to touch on that really quickly. The topic of First Nations comes up a lot, and I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about this. What I've realized, and I think everybody in this room knows this, that our First Nations brothers and sisters have experienced some of the worst situations in Canada, and the statistics they live under are not something that we should be advocating for. Can we agree on that? Things should be better. I believe that Alberta independence is an opportunity for our First Nations partners to right a lot of things. One of the things that we hear often is that the signatories to the treaties didn't understand the treaties and they thought it was something else. So when I hear that, I hear, okay, so the treaties may not have been done correctly or something in the past. Maybe it's time that we revisit it instead of relying on archaic, ancient texts that don't really have a lot of relevance now. Maybe we could do something different. So I wrote a little booklet, and it's called Why Alberta Independence Could Benefit First Nations People the Most. I truly believe that, and seeing how we're short on time, I would invite you to grab one of those booklets on your way out, read it. The treaties are in there, so you can read the treaties. All of the signatories for the treaties are in there as well, so you can read who signed, when they signed, under what conditions, whatever. And then Shane's trying to fly away. And then you can make your own decision on whether or not we have an opportunity with our First Nations partners to do something better. So please grab one of those books. Hurry up, Sandy.
Oh, in the event of an independent Alberta, what do you think would be the criteria for someone to become a citizen of Alberta?
I believe for that we need to first identify our values. We need to know who we are to impose whatever to whoever. And I believe this is a very highly hypothetical question that deserve an answer, not from one guy, but from our society, from what we want to see our province to become and who we want to welcome and not.
For the first time in history, it will be an opportunity for Albertans to decide those things, and that's the point. This is an opportunity for Albertans to take control of their future in a way that we've never been able to do before. I'm not guaranteeing it will be perfect. I'm not guaranteeing it'll be easy, but I can guarantee you that Albertans are up to the task, and those who make if the decisions are made and the people have the benefit or consequence from those decisions, our decisions will inevitably get better. I think that's all the time we have. Oh, no, we're not. There's a whole bunch in the bus that aren't stapled. We got tons of them. I printed off like 50. Shane, do the chairs have to go away or anything? Okay, so if you don't mind, folks, please give us a hand.
Hold on, I've got a question here still.
Oh, okay, let's get it.
I'll make it quick. I'm also just a lowly burger flipper. How many pipelines currently run from Alberta to the Baltic Sea?
0.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, folks. I wish we had more time, but I guess we got to get out of here. So if you don't mind helping us with the chairs, I'd appreciate it. And let's talk Alberta. This microphone works. Well, there we go, folks. Let's Talk Alberta in Redcliff. Sorry if we didn't get to your questions. We're having a real tough time getting everything done in time. So much so that I think we're going to change the format in the next ones. I think we're going to have more of an open forum podium for you to come stand at and have a more robust conversation about some of these things. I think that's important. And time is always our enemy. It's 9. I think we're supposed to be out of here by 9:30, and it's 9:42 now, so we might get in a little bit trouble. I see a question there, Chris. What are the chances of Drew Barnes joining the Let's Talk Alberta team? Well, I don't know. I'm probably pretty good. I'll ask him. That's a really good question. And how many pipelines go to the moon? 0. Yeah. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your continued support. We really appreciate it. See you tomorrow all over southern Alberta. Please check letstalkalberta.com for the stops with our Let's Talk Alberta bus. Grab a lawn sign, grab a picture, have some conversation. And if you are a forever Canadian, you are 100% welcome. We're happy to have you there. Nobody will sneer at you. We will allow you to pet our dogs if we had dogs. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing everybody. Have a great night, all. Did I forget anything? If I forgot anything, just leave it in the comments, please.
Meow.